Hi everyone and welcome to the Coral Gold Cup Gallops morning here on Tuesday morning at Newbury. Not the greatest day as regards the weather, but an opportunity for some of the leading players potentially come the big day on Saturday the 26th of November to work on the track and their trainers to get a look at them as well. The annual members were here to have a look as well, so a good morning turnout despite the weather and some real stars on show. Simon Clare, dawn of a new era because we've got the Coral Gold Cup. Now it's an extremely, well, it's a rich heritage race, but how proud are you from the sponsors to be able to carry your name?
Very, this is one of the big jump races in the calendar, always has been. Pre-Christmas, it really is, this race, the King George, they're the big two, the Tingle Creek maybe as well. The Roll of Honour is incredible. I sort of first got involved in racing in the late 80s, early 90s. It was all pipe and Scudamore, Strands of Gold, Chatham, the likes of Teton Mill, Sunny Bay. Master Oates, he won the Coral national here at Newbury. He did win the Coral Gold Cup. But he had some great horses, and then more recently we've had the likes of Native River for the Tizzard team win it and go on to win the Gold Cup. So a great race, and just thrilled that Coral are part of it.
Is it important to be a part of an event like this as well, to build up to the big 2 days?
Yeah, there's nothing like it in Britain really. I know the Derby has its Breakfast of the Stars up at Epsom in May as the only equivalent I can think of, and I've been lucky enough to go around the world where a lot of the horses train on the track in the days leading up to the big races. So it's much easier to create that kind of pre-event anticipation and get all the interviews with the trainers, get some of the public down to see the horses working. In Britain, it's really the luxury of owners who can get to go and see the horses at their private facilities. Luckily, some of the media get down and can shine a light on it, but really it's the race day when the public get to actually come and watch the horses. So to come a few weeks in advance like this, have some breakfast, get all the media down, create a little bit of anticipation building for the big race is fantastic. And that's why we have to thank the likes of Nicky Henderson, Joe Tizzard, Paul Nicholls for bringing their horses down, giving us something to watch. Otherwise it's just a breakfast, there's no gallops, and but look, this is one of those ironies that we've been praying for rain. All the jump trains have been saying in October, we need rain, but of course it goes and lands just when you're trying to do a PR event. But I think most people are going, this is good news, this rain, good news.
So we are a week and a half or so away from the big race, the Coral Gold Cup. How's the betting shaping up at the moment?
Yeah, listen, I think it's a really strong lineup. You've got some interesting sort of second season novices, which you always want. Some good sort of tough handicappers as well. We've got the likes of Fiddler on the Roof and Oscar Elite who are coming in. Yep. I know Joe Tizzard's quietly confident both their chances. Remastered, a horse who I think might well have won last year when he came down, and he's coming into the race off that lovely run in the handicap hurdle. Paul Nicholls got 300 through 5, which has got a good chance. I'm hoping Chantry House to run would be a bit of a class angle. Yes. And Lucinda Russell, I bumped into her the other day, and she's looking forward to bringing Corrich Rambler down. Yeah. So you've got all these different strands of form, plenty of Cheltenham form, and I'm hoping it's going to be another sort of classy, deep, tough-looking puzzle to work out on the day, and it's pointed to that at the moment.
So former Hennessy, then Ladbrokes Trophy, now Coral Gold Cup. You mentioned some pretty household names down the years. Who's your favourite?
I was a big Sunny Bay fan. I love that grey. He ran some great races in the Grand National here. So he'd probably be one of my favourites. But the Native River, it was one of those things where Ladbrokes sponsored it, but he ran in the coral colours of the Joe Tizzard team, and so it was quite fun to come and win here. So there's a lot of horses. There's a lot of great horses run the race. But Native River and Sunny Bay, probably two that span the generations.
Simon, thank you.
Thank you.
The race that Cap Course is likely to go at, it's the Sir Peter O'Sullivan race that is run here over 2 miles, 6.5 furlongs. And the JP McManus horses in there usually do run in the late Sir Peter's own colours. So it's fantastic to see Cap Course carry those to victory. He hasn't run quite as many times in the interim as he did 12 months ago, so he will start off on a little bit of a higher mark than he did. But as Luke and Paul have already mentioned, that the stable are absolutely flying early on. So even though he's £7 higher than when he was successful in this race, Peter O'Sullivan race 12 months ago, then with the yard going so well, he may well have been able to cope with that. We haven't seen him very often. He runs in this race regularly. I say he was successful at the race at 2018. And then, having had a couple of subsequent runs, he was off the track for 640 odd days. And when he was down the field in this race, we're talking about the Peter O'Sullivan race in 2020, the handicapper did then drop him, and we didn't see him again until he was successful. So basically he won off a year break, 364 days, but the same race 12 months on. Clearly is a horse that you just need to manage carefully. But Paul's done a good job of getting him here to win that particular race twice. So be interesting to see if he can do so again. He's partnered by, as you've heard, A.P. McCoy. 3 under through 5 is the other horse that is involved in the gallop here, owned by the McNeil family. 3 under through 5 is one of those horses we were talking about that is a potential Coral Gold Cup horse as they stretch away. He's won 4 of his 6 races over fences. They were a little bit more sedate often, and he might be one that he was 6th in the Brown Advisory Novice Chase at the Cheltenham Festival, and he's another who's actually had a spin this season, running in the race Oscar Elite ran into Weatherby when finishing in 3rd place. 3 under through 5. It's always nice when there's a little bit of thought that goes, or personal attachment that goes through into a horse's name. 3 under through 5 is named after Max McNeil's father, Ted, who actually led briefly the 1951 Open Championship when it was held at his home course in Portrush. And he led, as the name would suggest, at that point after 5 holes. He was the leader 3 under par, and so particularly nice name for a horse that has achieved a decent level of form. He's got a good strike rate. He's won 9 of 14, £140,000 during the course of his journey. But as I mentioned, it will be a little bit different if he lines up in the Coral Gold Cup, because during his novice career, the field sizes that he met were 4s, 5s, 3 and 5. So 4, 4, 5, 3, 5. 9 runner race at Cheltenham in that Brown Advisory, but that was a higher grade. AP grimacing there against the against the driving rain. Probably seemed like a good idea, and he said yes at the time, but he's aboard Capcourse. He was the horse that's won off the rails. And closer to the near side rail when they join us will be 3 under through 5. 3 under through 5, as I mentioned, had the run already, and it looks as if this is just a finishing touches for Capcourse. No more than that. As they're making their way now round the bottom bend. About half a mile or so to travel. Paul Nicholls' strike rate, referring to in the last fortnight or so, 19 winners from 44 starts. Harry Cobden's chipping in at around about 50% as well, and the likes of Hermes Allen were very impressive at Cheltenham, whetting the appetite for battles to come, but it does seem that these early season targets are well within the capabilities of lots of the Nicholls horses, even more so maybe than in previous years, with them appearing to be pretty well forward, given the difficulties it has been for many stables to get horses ready. So final 2.5 furlongs, visibility a little bit improved, which is good. Capcourse generally plies his trade at a little bit shorter ground than 3 under through 5, who is a confirmed 3 miler. Capcourse will be running over 2 miles 6.5 in that Sir Peter O'Sullivan race. So A.P. McCoy on the right-hand side on Capcourse. 3 under through 5. Closer to the running rail, under Adrian Heskin, the retained rider for the McNeil family. And they're doing a little bit more. Capcourse just giving a bit of a hit out over on the far side. As I say, he may be the one that just a finishing touch to his prep. And they finish just about together with 3 under through 5. Finishing well in hand for Adrian Heskin.
Paul, really looking forward to seeing 3 under through 5 in the Coral Gold Cup. I think a lot of people would think he's got an ideal profile. Is that the view you've got?
I would have thought it was a good race for second season novices. He was progressive last year. He had a nice run over hurdles the other day. He ran exactly as I expected, blew up and stayed on and finished 3rd. So, you know, everything's been geared around the race, yeah.
He's still very much an unknown in handicaps as well, isn't he?
Well, yeah, obviously because he was running in novices all last year. Hasn't, you know, you take that step up in the second season. If you're going to go for a good race like today, you prepare them accordingly. Hopefully we've done that right.
And as you said about Weatherby last time, that is a route you've taken before, isn't it? Is it something about just getting that fitness edge into them?
I just wanted to get a run into him to sharpen him up, and you know, it was just the job as part of his prep.
We're stood here and the rain hasn't abated all morning. I think there's plenty of rain forecast between now and next weekend. What would be your ideal scenario for him on the day?
Good to soft, be perfect. Just keep on raining, it doesn't matter. He's not worried, just doesn't want it quick,
And as regards where he is now from Wetherby, has that brought him on appreciably?
Very happy with him. Yeah. Everything's gone well. Today's a day out for him. Yeah, we're very happy with him.
And lastly, it's 15 years, believe it or not, since that incredible first weight carrying performance from Denman. Firstly, where do the years go? But secondly, how vivid and special are those memories still, Paul?
They were great days. Yeah. Even longer back to 86 and 87 when I was doing 10 stone 5 on play school in Broadheath. I remember those because I'd done that anything for a month beforehand.
Are they almost a little bit more vivid because of that?
Yeah, just never forget the months leading up to that. But obviously to win as a jockey, as a trainer, it's a fantastic race to win.
We wish you best of luck. Thank you.
Thank you.
Fiddler on the Roof, one of the 5 horses you will see working this morning that do hold entries in the Coral Gold Trophy, and you can Coral Gold Cup. You can see that the pen profiles of those are on the sheets that were on your tables this morning. Fiddler on the Roof with the sponsors 12 to 1. Oscar Elite also in the race, 12 to 1 chance. Oscar Elite coming out of the novice season, which is often a key to success in the big race, because you have one sort of crack really probably to take advantage of the fact that you will be lower rated as a novice than some of those experienced horses, and that's shown by Oscar Elite's mark of 139. 155 for Fiddler on the Roof, and Fiddler on the Roof fulfilled the Oscar Elite profile of 12 months ago of coming out of his novice career and then running really well in last year's equivalent of the Coral Gold Cup. Fiddler on the Roof was second under Brendan Powell to Cloudy Glen in the race 12 months ago as they begin their work down the back straight. So it's a far more leisurely beginning. Oscar Elite, currently those socks are white. They might be a little bit muddy by the time we get to the end, but he is the horse on the inside, closest to us. And Fiddler on the Roof, who returned at Kempton. And that was in one of the Pertemps qualifiers, 2 miles 5 furlongs, and that was always going to be a little bit on the sharp side. I think Joe will be encouraged that day by the way he found the line, because for him, he was obviously just outside his comfort zone from the word go. He was pushed along at a comparatively early stage, but he did stick to his task and ran on quite well in the closing stages to finish in third place. Does mean he did qualify for the final. It's unlikely to be an objective for him, but never be 100% sure over a more suitable trip come the festival. So Fiddler on the Roof working on the outside of Oscar Elite, and they've got round about a mile or so to go. Fiddler on the Roof, 11 chase runs for 2 victories. So 5th in the Grand National 12 months ago, or last season, exactly 12 months ago, and had previously finished 2nd at Ascot. That was the race that followed the good run here in the Coral Gold Cup, or Ladbrokes Trophy as it was last year, and made the transition through an intermediate chase at Carlisle, which often throws up a decent horse. Had been won by Many Clouds a few years prior to that. He was a decent novice chaser as well, finishing in the frame at Cheltenham and Aintree in his novice days. I say he was a little frustrating as a novice. Ran second to some really good horses, including at the November meeting here at Newbury when he finished 2nd of 3. So they're just continuing to work at no more than a steady pace, these two at the moment. Oscar Elite on the inside, winner of 2 of 13 races. Pulled up at Aintree, but finished in the frame in a competitive handicap. And that's good news for a novice if he's had some previous experience of 24 runners that day at Cheltenham when he finished in 3rd. That's the difference really between novice chasers coming into the potential hustle and bustle of a Coral Gold Cup. When some of the novice races, as we were talking about there with Fiddler on the Roof, have been 3 or 4 runner fields where horses have plenty of time at their obstacles. Not so in a race like the Coral Gold Cup. You can see the white face piercing the gloom on the right-hand side, Oscar Elite. Closer to the running rail, Fiddler on the Roof. Harry Kimber partnering Oscar Elite. Been amongst the winners in the last couple of weeks or so. Double the other day at Taunton, just prior to Cheltenham. Oscar Elite. He's quite a free sweating horse. I think you can see that and draw a little bit closer. He's got himself lathered up, and so that's part of the importance of bringing them to the race day to get them used to that. So maybe on the big day, he won't be quite so fizzy. So Oscar Elite just working in hand in company with Fiddler on the Roof. They are allowed to come home more in their own time than the first group, as Joe said. Fitness not really the objective, just a day out. Put the finishing touches to what could be a dual-pronged Tizzard attack on the Coral Gold Cup when we're back here in a couple of weeks' time.
Joe Tizzard, I suppose the now Coral Gold Cup, it's been a really special race for the whole Tizzard family over the last few years, really.
Yeah, we've been lucky. We've won it a couple of times with Native River, obviously, and Size in Tennessee. Have plenty of place horses in it as well. So it's a race that we target. It's a valuable handicap at the first sort of right time in the season. So it's lovely. And now sponsored by Coral, we're lucky to have two good horses in it, I think.
Is there an ideal type? Because I suppose Native River, one age spectrum, and then Size in Tennessee, I know he hadn't had that much racing, but he was a 10-year-old, and then you've got Elegant Escape was placed a couple of times. Is there any ideal type for this race?
I think the Trent horse is like a second season chaser, and so Native River and Size in Tennessee both were. Elegant Escape was as well, actually. So and then the Theatre Guide was placed in it a couple of times. They just need to be able to get into a nice rhythm. I think that's the key. It's fairly quick down over the first 2 or 3, and if you can get into the position you want in a nice rhythm, then you're away.
Oscar Elite is taking a route that Native River took, which is going via hurdles on into this race. How big a player could Oscar Elite be?
Well, I think off a 1.39, and you look back at his run in the Ultima, where he led over 2 out. I think he should have a live each way chance. I really think he should. We just had a little tweak of his wind after Aintree. A bit of a trapped upper glossus, which we sorted out, and then it was always a plan. We were toyed with running him in a novice chase, and the plan was to run him sort of that weekend, and then we said, well, we'll just have a go in the, it's more valuable, I'll go in the Yorkshire and work with Native River, so I do prep. He looks a lot fitter for it as well.
He's always been a good horse, hasn't he? Because I suppose that as a novice hurdler, he was placed in Grade 1 company at Cheltenham and Aintree as well, so another year down the line, just hopeful of what might come.
Yeah, and was able to be, he travelled like the winner until 2 out in the Ultima. So, he's proved he can handle a big handicap as well. So I think he's off a mark was workable. I mean, this is a seriously hot race. I mean, the other years perhaps hasn't been quite as deep, but I think it looks particularly hot this year. And but he deserves to be there and having a crack at it.
Fiddler on the Roof's going to have another crack at it after a huge effort second last year.
Yeah, he's actually £5 higher this year, and Remastered fell 4 out, I think it was, and he just had to sidestep him, lost a little bit of momentum, and then galloped right through the line. He's going to have another crack at this, and then another crack at the Grand National. That's the two aims this year. We might just stick a set of cheek pieces or something on him, because he just at Ascot and that he's just run behind the bridle a little bit, so we might just give him a bit of headgear first time in this race. But he's a big, strong horse who he hasn't quite had his day yet. He's knocked on the door a few times, been second a lot of times, and I think there's a big one in him at some point. I made an entry for him this morning, well, both of them actually, for the Welsh National as well.
Okay. Which Native River did after winning this, of course. Now, is a quality 2 days of racing. Are there any others that you'd signal as likely runners across the weekend?
Yeah, I've got a few. I'll probably run Call of Dawn in the maiden hurdle on Friday. He was second to Jim Coco, who was then second at Cheltenham in the Great Wood, so that form's come out pretty good. He'll run in the maiden. I've got a novice hurdle coming up. Amarillo Sky, as long as he's come out of his race, which he appears to have from Cheltenham, he'll come back here on the Saturday. Killer Kane. So yeah, we're gonna try and bring 3 or 4 both days. It's a lovely meeting. We love this meeting. It's a real fair track. The rain's come now as well, we try to support it as hard as we can.
It's been a happy hunting ground for the whole team really in the last few years. Hopefully that continues. Joe, thank you.
Cheers, mate.
Thanks.
Cool Cody giving a lead to Ansam in the early strides. Again, that's probably more obvious given the normal trips over which they run. Cool Cody, 2.5 miler. Just going back to what I was saying, as Evan was suggesting that maybe his horse, who now has a rating of 151 over fences, could well be employed to pick up some prize money in some of the conditions races, some of which have cut up, possibly due to the ground, but also a little bit later on in the season. There are races at Ascot, for example, over 2.5 miles, which sometimes do not always attract the largest field. So Cool Cody may go pot hunting in those. He is a very handy horse in his own right, a horse that you'd love to own. £300,000 worth of prize money. And as I say, if you're going to be good, then be good at Cheltenham, because that is what he is. And his success at the festival meeting, 22-1 he was on that occasion. That was off a mark of 145, and given that he was already 11 years of age by then, he'll be turning 12 when, of course, the traditional National Hunt birthdays take place. And he certainly is an interesting contender in those 2.5 mile conditions races. Ansam, by contrast, quite the young kid on the block, but certainly is a little bit younger than Cool Cody. And he's had 2 victories from 7 chase starts. He returned with a run at Ascot. And Ansam moving round. As I say, it's unlikely that this is a gallop for fitness, unlike the previous one, the Nicky Henderson one, which clearly was. These two have both had runs comparatively recently, well, certainly recently in Cool Cody's case, because he was pulled up after 5 fences at Cheltenham from the weekend. Ansam ended last season with a victory here over hurdles. He had finished victorious at Ascot over fences. He's always mixed the smaller and larger obstacles in recent starts. He's just moving a little bit closer to Cool Cody. Make their way up the home straight. So nice to see Cool Cody none the worse for that. It wasn't really a spill, it was a serious mistake, and such is the competitive nature of those handicaps. An error that cost you as much ground as it did for Cool Cody is effectively going to end your chances. So Cool Cody and Ansam, who's free sweating Ansam, moving up to put potentially the final touches to Ansam's Coral Gold Cup bid. And Connor's just asking him to go through the gears, Ansam, and he's moving on from Cool Cody. So actually a fairly serious hit out for Ansam. Maybe giving the impression that this may determine whether we do see him back here in 10 days' time. Cool Cody's eased down once his measure has been taken, but by contrast, Ansam asked to stretch all the way to the line by Connor Ring. Lewis Gordon follows him home on Cool Cody. So that completes the gallops action out on the track this morning. Thank you all to all of the trainers, as always, for bringing the horses here. Really good chance to get up close and personal with horses that we might be seeing back here in round about 10 days' time, or we may be seeing elsewhere. But either way, great to catch up with these National Hunt horses. And as we mentioned, once the horses have returned, some of the trainers that are involved will be catching up with Luke in the owners and trainers area. So please get yourself back inside, cup of tea, and a chance to hear about the running plans for a few of the horses we've seen here this morning.
Evan, just having a look back, and 16 years since, and you know exactly what I'm going to say, since State of Play, which was when he won formerly the Hennessy, now the Coral Gold Cup. That must have been such a significant day for you.
Oh, a huge day. It's still a huge day now.
Yeah.
You know, you can't win races like that and not be affected by their importance.
How vividly do you remember it?
I remember it as if it was yesterday.
Do you?
Yeah, it's just, I mean, he was a horse that I'm very close to. I probably will never be as close to another horse like him again in my life. And it was just a very, very special occasion.
Was everything sort of perfect on the day?
Perfect for the day. Everything went right.
Yeah.
It had been a plan since the spring, and everyone said he couldn't win without a prep. And, you know, there was loads of things people were saying couldn't be done, and nobody had trained one from Wales. So it was a very, very, very special day.
So fast forward to now, Ansam for the Coral Gold Cup. Gathered from what we've been talking about off air a few moments ago that he couldn't win this without a prep. He's a horse who needs plenty of work getting into him.
You're the complete opposite to State of Play in every aspect. Big rangy horse, very gassy, very bullish, difficult horse to get right. He ran okay to a point in Ascot, knowing him. Ideally, I'd like to have got a spin over hurdles before that and then gone chasing and then come here, but the ground's fast enough, and that's the way it was.
So while some of the horses maybe from other yards are coming here for an away day, he's coming here to get a good bit of work into him today.
He needs a blow.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have come here just for a day out. I don't need to do that.
Yeah.
You know, we're 2 hours away. I don't have to come here. So, although it's in the glare of the cameras and everybody, we'll be doing a bit down the straight. The horse has to go and have a blow.
So we'll assume much fitter than Ascot. So if 100% on song, how big a player could he be? And in fact, how big has this been in your mind for a while, this race for him?
Well, we always hoped that he could be a horse for the best handicaps. And I think he's got the natural talent, but he's, as I said, difficult to get mentally and physically right for. There's a big difference between having him half right and spot on right.
Yeah.
And he needs to bounce out of this piece of work, and I know it's quite close to the race, but it's what will suit him if it were to go right.
And he's joined by his, I suppose, his good friend from home, called Cody, who we saw just the other day at Cheltenham, his beloved Cheltenham. How is he after that?
He's grand. He wouldn't be here otherwise. He was fine after he sort of half done the splits and Adam pulled him up, so he didn't have a race, and so he's in an Ascot on Saturday. Whether we'll go or not, I don't know, but he's a good, honest workhorse, and he works, you know.
Keeps Ansam honest, does he?
Clockwork, you know,
Yeah.
and he'll work to mid-140s every day of the week, you know, so I just thought it made sense to get him back on track, and he could help Ansam along the way.
And just as regards to the weather, with it going back to Ansam, if we have a prolonged period of rain, maybe over the next week and a half or so, what would be the ideal situation for you come Coral Gold Cup day here?
We need rain.
Yeah.
We need rain. I don't worry about the ground for Ansam. He'll go on good ground, soft ground, heavy ground. He'll go on any ground. It's getting Ansam right is quite tricky, you know.
Well, we'll look forward to seeing how he is on the day, and good luck with the exercise in a few moments' time. Evan, thank you.
Cheers, thank you.
So early on, the three runners just being allowed to stretch their legs, and it is the nose-banded Maurice Rock who is leading out the gallop, winner of 7 of her 12 career starts, and as I mentioned, really stepped up on things in the second half of the season with back-to-back Grade 1 victories at Cheltenham in the mares race, and then following up against her own sex again at Punchestown. Both of those successes were over 2 miles and 3 and 2 miles 4, so makes a little bit of sense that she probably leads the gallop, because if you stuck her in behind, possibility that she might get slightly tapped for toe. She settles a lot better these days as well, the application of that noseband, and that has been part of the reason for her success, racing in the Midland Park racing colours, usually when we see her on a racecourse. So the boy between the two girls is First Street, winner of 3 of 9 career starts. I say arguably the best runs in defeat here in the Betfair Hurdle, and then second in the County Hurdle, which were particularly good performances for a horse that was so inexperienced. Winner of a novice at Bangor and a Warwick victory back in 2021. It was early on in the season, and then progressed through to win at Kempton, handicap in January over 2 miles, and then, as I say, placed in a couple of big races at Newbury and also at the Cheltenham Festival before finishing 5th of 9 at Aintree. That was the first step out of handicap company, and maybe found just a little bit too hot on this occasion, but maybe also those exertions of that big run at Cheltenham just taking its toll as well. And last of the trio is Epatante, and as I mentioned, Epatante is a regular at this morning. She, of course, the speediest of the trio, but as she gets a little bit older, she saw out the 2.5 miles of the Aintree Hurdle pretty well last time, and she has a rating of 154. In her pomp, she was rated 161 or so, so as a consequence, she still has a little bit of potential improvement to get back to those levels, but the stable have done particularly well in maintaining her form down the years as they make their turn into the home straight. Apologies, conditions make observing exactly the niceties of the jockey's body language, etc., a little bit difficult, but just a reminder that when they come more obviously into view, there you can see the noseband still leading them is Maurice Rock, First Street and Epatante working in behind, and gradually, you'll see this during the course of the morning, they will fan out and be asked to varying degrees, depending partly on how they're travelling and also depending on exactly what the point of today's work is in terms of serious work or just a day out. And the first one to attack Marie's Rock will be First Street, and Epatante will probably be the one that chimes in towards the centre on the outside. And the three of them just about abreast now. A furlong and a half for this piece of work to go. All of the jockeys sitting pretty quietly. Epatante now doing it pretty smoothly up on the outside. So Epatante furthest away from us in the centre, First Street. And having cut out the donkey work, Marie's Rock is just allowed to drift back. First Street working nicely alongside Epatante on the run to the line. So First Street and Epatante, they pass the post just a couple of lengths ahead of Marie's Rock in the first gallop of the morning. A reminder, the gallops will come pretty thick and fast. Luke will be introducing the next ones to come out, but it'll be the Joe Tizzard pair as the first of the Nicky Henderson trio complete their work this morning. Highest profile horse really on show here today will be Shishkin, who looks an absolute monster of a horse in his younger days and had disposed of all of the opposition that he had faced until probably that race with Energumene in comprehensive fashion. He had won an Irish point-to-point. He had won a bumper at Kempton before coming down an 8-11 favourite here in a maiden hurdle back in December 2019, but he quickly picked up the pieces there as a novice, winning back here, then going to Huntingdon and then to Cheltenham, where he beat Abracadabra and Chantry House, who was third to him that day in the 2020 Supreme. But it was the impression was left that day that was the main thing, and his novice chase career was eagerly anticipated. He won at Kempton twice and at Doncaster before winning the Arkle, beating Eldorado Alen and Captain Guinness, both of whom again have proved to be no slouches. So Shishkin is in the middle of the trio. Champ it is who's leading, and Chantry House in third place. Now again, with this gallop, a little bit like the previous one for Nicky's, he has tended to use these gallops as part of the horse's preparation and make it a slightly more serious piece of work than some of the other trainers. Many of you may remember seeing Altior get a pretty decent hit out. Bouvardere is another one who's been here in previous years alongside Epatante, where clearly there has been an element of taking the opportunity of being able to work on, as Luke said, the best ground we will have seen in terms of being able to work in this neck of the woods for quite a considerable period of time. You can see even on those pictures, they're just kicking it up slightly. Best line of ground is on the outside of the hurdles course, closest to course where we race on the flat, which of course then gets watered during the summer. But it is the traditional racing line over the fences that is harder to keep wet during the prolonged dry spell without pouring loads of water on. So Champ leading the gallop. So sporting a pair of cheek pieces, but settled nicely in front. Shishkin, let's look, see if he's done a fair amount of work in second. And Chantry House last of the three. So we'll be hearing from some of the trainers a little bit later on, but where the potential targets for these horses are. If Champ wishes to go down the staying route again, then obviously the long walk hurdle, which he won 12 months ago, could be on the agenda. There is, of course, a very high-profile race on the Friday here of the Coral Gold Cup meeting. Shishkin, it'd be interesting to hear how close or otherwise he may be to a return in the Tingle Creek. Nicky understandably not wishing to build people's hopes up off the back of returning from a mishap or something being amiss. Everything does then need to go right as Nico just pulls down a set of goggles. And AP's just beginning to wind this up. So this is looks a slightly more serious piece of work. Shishkin just being moved up to Champ. And Chantry House just being asked to lie up as well. So Champ, who does have this extraordinary engine, I would imagine he is always quite a good workhorse, but Nicky might say otherwise. But Shishkin just moving up to him, and Chantry House just having to work slightly to stay on terms with these two. And this is, I think, by far the most serious gallop we've had so far, featuring two high-profile horses as well. Clearly, Shishkin is here for slightly more than the day out, just having to hang on the outside as they make their way through. Is Champ, but Shishkin in the centre, closest to us. It's an impressive piece of work. Champ's just getting a little bit weary. Maybe that appearance was right, and he might just need a little bit more to put him 100% right. Chantry House, but Shishkin up the middle there has produced a decent piece of work. Great to see him back on the racecourse. Great to see all three Grade 1 winners back on the racecourse.
Nicky, I know this is a very special race to you, a race you've won a number of times. It's now the Coral Gold Cup. What's the squad looking like for this year?
Well, for the Gold Cup itself, Chantry House is he's the only one we have in there left in at the moment. So we'll just have to see. He's done nice today, had a good blow. So we'll sort of think about that one. But that was always it's the plan. He's in good form, and that should bring him on quite a lot.
You said over the summer, I think what he's done since the back end of last season has made you proud. Are you still feeling that way with him?
Yeah, I mean he did need that, but I mean in every other way we've done his wind and he's had a bit of surgery on his back and he's just sort of in very good form. He's probably been finding life a little bit too easy at home possibly because he is that little bit better in himself.
He does bring rather, talking about a dual Grade 1 winner, a fair class angle into this race.
He does, he is a class horse, but you need one for a race like this. You're not going to win it with middle of the road horses, put it like that.
And obviously, talk about a couple of your winners, Bobsworth, Trebolgan, Royal and Sun Alliance winners at the time, second season chase. He's not in that mould, but on his very best form, he's a big player, is he not?
Oh, he is. I mean, he's a high class horse, and he was. I mean, everything, he won the Cotswold chase.
Yeah.
You know, things went wrong in the Gold Cup, and we realised that, and we've done everything we can to sort of pick up the reasons for why it didn't work, and say his back was one thing, and his wind definitely needed attending to. So with all that done, I think we have a different horse, and one to look forward to.
And did I read somewhere you saying that he might prefer a slightly smaller field than maybe the hurly-burly of this, or?
Well, that is correct.
Yeah.
Yes, that's always slightly been our concern about this race. That it, you know, it is a fast and furious, going to have a full-size field, I'm sure. You know, there have been years when the ground's still been quick, surprisingly quick, even in years gone by, when the race has cut up a little bit, but I can't see it doing that. That was beautiful ground this morning, so I'm sure Keith's got his eye on something similar to that come Saturday week.
And it's a case of this, that the Tempton wouldn't be on the agenda again for Christmas?
No, I didn't even put him in the King George, no, he didn't enjoy that at all. Having said that, I think he's a different horse, but after the King George, he came back and won the Cotswold chase, and so it proved that this Kempton wasn't his scene.
I must ask you, bought Shishkin here, absolute stable star. We haven't seen him since the Queen Mother Champion chase. Where are we with him at the moment?
Very pleased.
Yep.
Nicholls was in there. We had this extraordinary issue. As I say, he came into Cheltenham. We thought we were in very good shape. Yes, it rained ferociously for the, to turn Wednesday into some horrible ground. But, first reaction was to blame the ground. But I could tell from Nico's body language he wasn't happy going to the first fence. And when he came home, we had a very unhappy horse altogether. It took some finding the problems with our vets, and they're just down the road here, Donington. It took some finding, but when we took a bone scan, they found all these ridiculous hotspots, and he had a bone disorder, if you like. I'm not sure you'd quite call it a disease, but a bone disorder where apparently the sort of blood supply hadn't been working to certain, what they call the long bones, and there were 5 issues. That's all gone, and his last scan was absolutely 100%. His work's been improving, and today he was, that was his big acid test to see where we are.
And does that make him plan A for the Tingle Creek?
I'm going to put it like this. It's a possibility, it's a hope, he's entered. We're on track, but I'm going to make no promises, because if we're not happy and he's not happy, and it goes that way round, if he's not happy, I'm not happy. And if the ground is right, and I know a lot of people will start this roundabout again of saying he won't run them, he won't risk them. Of course I'm not going to risk them if the things are wrong. We've made the mistakes in the past by having pressure put on us.
So if it's not that, could it be Kempton at Christmas instead?
It'll turn to that, yes. Yeah. It will. But I mean, he's really shown today, Nico and myself, that he is in very good order.
And lastly, I must ask a little bit more immediately about a pretty pulsating novice chase tomorrow, where we'll see John Bon. How much are you looking forward to it? Because it looks like a bit of a midweek cracker.
It does. I mean, it's a very 3 runners and they're 3 high-class hurdlers, so it'll be very interesting. Yes.
And John Bon is, well, it's first day for him as a chaser, but quite exciting in that division.
He's done everything. We've always looked forward to the day he would go chasing, and I've got to say that everything has gone really well at home. He's been moving beautifully, he's been working very well, and he's been schooling very well. But I mean, that doesn't tell you anything until you get out there and do it on the racecourse. It could just turn into a bit of a messy race with only 3 runners, and I don't know how the format will go, but we'll work it out nearer the time. Yeah, I look forward to it with a certain amount of intrepidation, because it's a very important day. He's a horse that's been, you know, high profile, if you like, for a number of different reasons. Mostly, I'm glad to say, because he was a very, very good hurdler last year, and only one horse managed to finish in front of him. Luckily, that was one of ours, Constitution Hill, obviously. And then his performance at Aintree was fantastic. So we look forward to this. It's the start of a new ball game altogether, and let's hope.
I'll let you get out of the rain, thank you.
Thank you.
Keith, speaking to you a week away from or a week and a half away from the Coral Gold Cup, the new name, of course. I've spoken to any number of the trainers that are here today. They're all delighted by the rain. It's not great to stand in, but it's something we wanted to see, isn't it?
Yeah, most definitely is. We've had a massive sort of water deficit over the summertime, and it probably dates back about 12 months now since we've had the low rainfall period, and we've had a hosepipe ban, and luckily we can still irrigate the track, but we've needed it badly, and it's just about building up now and getting us back where we want to be.
If you were staging the meeting today, what would you be calling the ground?
Well, I'd probably somewhere around good to soft, maybe still a bit of good in it. The strip they canted on this morning, Nico rode First Street in the first lot, and he came back and said it was good to soft, maybe soft in places. But it is a bit easier around the outside of the hurdle course, because it gets a bit of drift from the flat course with all the irrigation during the summertime.
And, well, we are, like I said, a week and a half away. What is the forecast looking like, and is it playing to your favour?
It is. We're going to get we've had about 20 mil of rain this morning. There's going to be more rain Wednesday night. There'll be more spells sort of Saturday and Monday. But as we've seen recently in other places, it does dry out very quickly because we're still a little bit behind where we'd normally be. So we'll keep an eye on that. I don't think anybody will want it to dry out and be good or quicker ground now. You know, summer jumping's finished. So we'll keep an eye on that and help it along if we need to.
How many meetings, or how many, as they are now, Coral Gold Cup meetings will you have done now?
I think this will be my 5th going in, and it's definitely the highlight of the jump season. Yeah.
What's been your favourite?
I'm not sure at the moment. It just, as long as everything goes well and everybody's fine. I mean, I loved it when Darasha Counter won for Andrew Gemmell. That was a great race. I sort of missed out a little bit. I came a year after Native River had won, because I was at Chepstow before that. He won a Coral Welsh Nationals, then he won a Gold Cup, and then he came here and won the Hennessy, the final running of the Hennessy.
So you almost got to sort of join the dots with him.
Well, I did, and funnily enough, he's making a guest appearance at lunchtime for a photo shoot at the Rocking Horse Nursery. So we're reenacting a photo shoot that Sonny Bay did quite some years back when they opened it, and he'll be here later, so we'll go along and see him soon.
And just from a perspective of being the clerk of the course for today, it's been going a good while, this sort of dress rehearsal, the opportunity for some of the trainers locally and from further afield to come and test their horses. It's part of the institution of the meeting, really, isn't it?
It is part of the build-up, and it's nice to see the horses come along. And Nicky's very kind. He brings other horses like Epatante and Shishkin, and it's great to bring the media here and see those. And our members as well can come and see them. They might not be running with us next week, but we also saw plenty of contenders, and it's become part of it. And it's great for the build-up and gets the juices flowing.
I think we're the only 2 people in Berkshire stood out in this now, so I think we'll go back in. Keith, thank you.
Thanks, Nick.